Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, here back with another reaction video. Today, we're finna react to when wrestlers get punished. This should be interesting. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Now, wrestling has a weird way of punishing talent. While it's warranted that said talent obviously has to do his bidding and understand the errors of their actions, you sometimes see said company go too far in those efforts. But at the end of the day, this video was initially supposed to be wrestling's most unjust punishment. I hated working on it initially because I had to live with that premise, so I had to change it up. So this video is more of a looser version of that video. So enough talk, let's get into it. Okay, the Triple H was starting to make a name for himself upon his debut. He was doing decently as the Royal Snob of Greenwich. He was one of Vince McMahon's pet projects, and the Blue Blood went above and beyond to grow his influence in the company. He was one of the hardest working wrestlers at the time, but also knew who to befriend. He was a part of the Clique, which is a strong influence in the backstage area. While Hemsley's power or influence didn't show as much on TV, his time was coming. King of the Ring 1996, a tournament for the Blue Blood to win, but then the most controversial moment of his career happened.
He went out there and celebrated with his friend.
The curtain call was a huge incident because it was exposing the business. Now, the business was about as exposed as Hulk Hogan's bald spot, but this was more blatant, and since Razor and Diesel were leaving, somebody had to be punished. Shawn Michaels was the champion, not to mention that he was...
I do have to agree with Vince for punishing him, though, because y'all could have did this backstage. If this was the final call, y'all could have did this backstage. Y'all could have waited. You could have waited, wait for your boys to come backstage, and then y'all could have hugged it out, said y'all goodbyes or whatever, drank a beer, do whatever y'all got to do. But do it off camera. Do it outside, out of mind, off camera. I agree with Vince. When I first heard about this, I was like, that's kind of fucked up. He was just trying to say goodbye to his friends. But as I thought about it, they could have did that shit in the backstage, bro. Triple H was tripping. You should have not went out there.
Was the new face of the company, so Hunter Hearst Helmsley had to take it. Now, I think his punishment is blown into epic proportions, but he did get a punishment. That King of the Ring was given to Stone Cold Steve Austin,
the best thing that could have happened
for several months. Missed SummerSlam and had the snake on top of him after a loss to Jake Roberts. It wasn't too bad for him entirely, but after it, he was on to better things. In the moment, he just saw himself suffering loss after loss after loss, complaining about wrestling Ahmed Johnson, who at the time was very green. He still is green. I don't even know why I added at the time. It was a 5-month punishment, but it ended with him winning the Intercontinental Championship and having Mr. Perfect as his manager. That didn't last because Hennig left for WCW, but it was much better than where he was previously, and the rest is history. The Attitude Era was filled with plenty of colorful characters and some that are still talked about to this day. A faction that only lasted 8 months is still talked about. The Brood. The Brood was a perfect trio that captured the vampire craze in pop culture at the time. Buffy the Vampire, Blade, and Gangrel debuted the same week Blade came out. The group was always said to follow an alternative lifestyle. You know, code word for vampire, but they didn't want to say it. And regardless of that, they quickly got over with the fans. They got so over that The Undertaker wanted them in the Ministry of Darkness. This was not the best decision, honestly, because in many ways, the Acolytes, Midian, and Viscera just suited the group way more, and the momentum was stifled. Right before they joined the Ministry, Gangrel was coined to win the European Championship. It's almost like a Mandela effect because it feels like he did win it, but he didn't. Gangrel claims that he was punished due to some incident involving some guy trying to sell steroids to the talent. He was videotaping it as well. He was probably in the frame, but he says he wasn't involved and his innocence was proven, but by then, the European Championship was gone. I think the European Championship would have fit the Brood at the time, but it just wasn't to be. That said, I was pretty entertained by Gangrel's matches from that time period. He wrestled like a pit bull. There's just something about him, like, aggression. So I thought he would have fit in there facing the likes of X-Pac, D'Lo Brown, Billy Gunn, and the Road Dogg while actually being champion. Now, unlike Owen Hart, Perry Saturn had a full-on punishment. After going into business for himself against a jobber on Metal for dropping him on his head, Perry Saturn endured what would be a memorable run of his, but it wasn't with good intentions from the WWF. He suffered a storyline head injury and began dating a mop. It was bizarre in that clown show, but it worked in his favor. Very different to what Saturn was used to. The mop got over, he had a decent summer that year, which was not supposed to be the case, and it made for a silly storyline and feud with Raven. He wasn't doing that well in the WWF at the time, but this is a bit of a highlight for Perry Saturn, who does have a history of taking punishments and turning them into positives. Roddy Piper is known as a man that will speak his mind. He's very grounded in his reality and makes sure you understand where he's coming from, even if it scratches some heads or leads to controversy. Hot Rod is a man that for his entire career has been known for controversy. He's one of the first modern heels. He was unhinged, unpredictable, but very charming and endearing. While Piper didn't always have a great relationship with management, he still made it work. But one instance where Piper knowingly messed up big time was after his return to WWE in 2003. Piper Piper at the time featured on the SmackDown brand, and it's not known exactly when he shot the HBO interview, the one where Vince went insane and threw papers around, acted emotional. And his reasons for getting all emotional is because the interview went in depth with the effects of pro wrestling. At the time, it was more grueling than now. A lot more traveling, drug use, and steroid abuse. It's a tough business, but in some ways, the blame is on promotions. Yes, it's not a baby thing where wrestlers can't take responsibility for their actions, but think about it from your perspective. You're a great wrestler, good talker at the time and charismatic, but they view you as tiny, viewing you as small limits your pay. You could be a millionaire if you're bigger, which would set free your family and yourself. The wrestler I described is Eddie Guerrero. With that said, this interview with Piper was one where he didn't shy away from the dark side of the squared circle. He even went as far as to say that he wouldn't make 65s, and he didn't. Piper said that most of his friends were dead, but the worst part about that is that he wasn't wrong, and that would continue. Look at WrestleManias 1 through 9. They're filled with dead wrestlers. Hell, you could go 1 through 13. The best representation of that era at the top is very deceiving. It's Ted DiBiase and Ric Flair. Like, think about that. Ric Flair, who wasn't even around for that era. Piper was being real, but he paid the price by getting fired. He was fired in June of 2003 after the interview released, and WWE said Piper was, quote, revealing disturbing facts about his own personal drug use. And that's the reason he was released, despite being open about it in the past. It's PR, we worry about safety, we fired him for this reason when it's actually this, but he paid the price for that interview. While it was a tough price to pay and he struggled a lot, he wasn't lying about it at all. He's one of those guys that always keeps it real. He ended up returning a year and a half later to be inducted into the Hall of Fame ceremony, which was the most stacked Hall of Fame probably ever. There's a lot of unwritten rules in wrestling, and sometimes I actually wonder if they make up these rules on the fly. When the WWE brought back their Tough Enough competition, it had a strong sell to contestants. It was for $1 million. Now that was divided into 4 years, but it was for that. This Tough Enough was a comedy show because it was live on SmackDown. Seeing as I'm talking about the $1 million Tough Enough, you guys might be familiar with the Kurt Angle incident. The moment where Angle tried testing every man in the ring only to meet his match.
Oh yeah.
Daniel Puder is strongly implied to be a UFC fighter, but it wasn't that. It's just UFC wasn't as strongly prevalent as now. They had this unscripted segment where Kurt Angle decided to go after Daniel Puder of all people. Why? Because Vince and Bruce Pritchard specifically told him not to go and choose him. Then they had a shoot fight which almost ended horribly for Kurt Angle, who was locked in a Kimura, and the ref had to count a fake pinfall to end it. So he developed a reputation. Then came the Royal Rumble, a match Puder considered for himself in the main event. In storyline. And listen, the WWE in 2005 is tough, but you do not want to be a rookie in a ring with Eddie Guerrero, Hardcore Holly, and Chris Benoit. Oh no, Eddie not Chris Benoit. Hardcore just beat up Rene Dupree for getting a parking ticket, and Chris Benoit, even before 2007, he was heated and menacing. They beat him up for real, then threw him out.
That's CTE,
definitely a collective effort from the WWE and some of the talents to get one over Puder. Not some internet, ooh, rumor has it. It's not any of that. And looking at it from his perspective, listen, I don't care if it's a hot take. I don't really see what he did wrong. What? Prove that he's a better fighter than all of these guys? Don't choose him for the segment then. That's number one. Number two, the WWE didn't like that he was gonna honor that contract, and the wrestlers themselves complained, so he's on borrowed time. And one of the main reasons I don't think he's wrong is because WWE is constantly doing this grab the brass ring thing, and if he lost here or something, they probably would have been like, this guy's not a fighter, he's a fraud. At the end of the day, a shoot fight involving a former MMA fighter isn't the wisest thing to do, so they might as well have pulled the plug entirely on this thing before it even happened. I just think the dumb hazing is what stands out more than the shoot fighting incident, because the wrestlers can beat them up under the guise of WWE. When they're in the ring, when it's Vince McMahon's ring, it works for them. Without that, Hardcore Holly is bouncing off the floor like a cartoon, I'm telling you. You guys saw him at the Rumble when he made his entrance doing that smile? It's like he saw a well done, like 10 out of 10 steak or something. He's ready to feast upon it. With the other two, well, just ask Kurt Angle. Listen, I'm not a big fan of Daniel Puder. I barely know anything about his work other than the fact that he looks like a Tito Ortiz protege. But this incident is a prime example of the issues within pro wrestling. You can easily get yourself in a bad position just because people are threatened by you. While Puder did terribly for himself, that wasn't the same story for the rest of that Tough Enough group. Mike Mizanin was the one that stood out. All for his reality show credentials. He was from MTV, and at the time it was considered dumb and nonsensical. The Miz wasn't a big hit in the locker room. Then again, this is 2006 WWE. A former wrestler by the name of Palmer Cannon quit the company after dealing with the SmackDown locker room. And there's been plenty of stories and mentions of that locker room for the likes of John Morrison, Paul London, and Brian Kendrick, and it was the same story. It was toxic. With The Miz, he was a very easy target, and he gave them a reason. It was enough to go all out. One night, The Miz was eating chicken and then landed on a referee's back. One wrestler noticed this, and listen, you can piss off half the locker room, but in 2006, you don't want to piss off Chris Benoit of all people. This is going through the motions, lost cause Chris Benoit. It's not even Chris Benoit of 2004 or any of that. No, he kicks him out, boots him right out of there, and Miz was banned from the locker room indefinitely. But I feel like he would have found a way to get to him regardless of that. And Miz's punishment lasted even after Benoit killed his family. He didn't return until the Undertaker, who was confused, asked him why he was changing elsewhere. And he had to respond that the guy that kicked him out was dead. And that's some wrestling rule or something, I don't know. But in some ways, I do understand the hierarchy, although it's silly. WWE's change to a PG product was met with some worry from the talent. It was of course a strong and radical change, seeing as WWE had been more violent and intense in the past. WWE has history as a PG company. SmackDown itself was PG throughout its entire time, and even in the Attitude Era. But this was different. It was a stronger effort to court the family-friendly audience. What made it most apparent to the wrestlers that the PG thing wasn't a joke was a moment that also gave Batista an idea of his future in the WWE. On the November 3rd, 2008 episode of Raw, Batista defended the World Heavyweight Championship in a steel cage match. Batista rode with Triple H and Ric Flair plenty of times. He knows the ins and outs of the steel cage, and with Flair, he is considered one of the greatest competitors to ever compete in a steel cage match, so he knew that a cage match was only as good as the blood drawn on your forehead. So he bladed, and blading was already banned months earlier after Shawn Michaels bled like a hospital. Vince had a secret camera and caught Batista in the act, so he fined him $100,000. Think about that, $100K for opening up your forehead in a match that's known for that. It was super hard.
Yeah, that was some bullshit. That was some bullshit. Finding him for basically enhancing the match with blood because we're going PG. All right.
Batista was stunned. He's at a loss for words because he wasn't the only one responsible. Jericho, Dean Malenko, and Mike Chioda were all fined a total of $15K. Batista paid for all of their fines, but even then, he felt the effects. Now, this is a bit unjust, but I get Vince here, honestly. Not just to side with him for the sake of it, but Batista and Jericho tried to hide the fact that they were doing this. It's like they're trying to get one over the bus and claim that it happened naturally or something like that. This one is about blood, which obviously wasn't accepted by the WWE because it would lead to loss of sponsors, loss of different opportunities. Obviously, he would be pissed off at it. Mickie James was WWE's top woman. It was clear that the division was centered around her. But the WWE following Lita and Trish Stratus,
I know what this one was. Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, I remember this one. Did that freaky shit. I like it. I fuck with it. I fuck with it. I appreciate it. She did that one thing at WrestleMania that had everybody. Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. Shout out to Mickie James.
never fully relied on a single woman for a long time. Mickie James, though, was another exception and was the top of the top until 2009. Then came a lot of drama involving her and John Cena. Cena was married at the time. She was in a relationship with Kenny Dykstra.
You talk about the Cena shit. That was. I forgot about that. I thought they was talking about the WrestleMania moment when she did the yeah. And they punished her for that shit.
During that time, it was so bad that she moved from Raw to SmackDown after the breakup with John Cena. If I remember at the time, Melina was traded for her. Her time on SmackDown is uneventful except the story where she was called fat by Lay Cool. Lay Cool were doing their best beautiful people impression with a twist. They were high school bullies for somebody who wasn't even fat. They called her Piggy James. Apparently, WWE felt that she was fat, and the story was just them throwing every insult, having segments devoted to her being fat, and while they would get their comeuppance, Lay Cool took back the Women's Championship after 2 or 3 weeks. Her days in WWE were numbered, and she was released after WrestleMania 26 for being late during a European tour. She was stressed out during that time stemming from her move to SmackDown, and things just fell apart. Okay, the Straight Edge Society in 2010 had a great start, CM Punk creating something and becoming greedy with power. And when people talk about the story, they focus on the Rey Mysterio feud, which was great work. And Punk during this run brought 2 names to the limelight, Luke Gallows and Serena Deeb. And similar to Gallows, she served as a lion and soldier for CM Punk. Her storyline influence was minimal, especially when compared to Gallows, Punk, and even Joey Mercury, although his name was Joseph Mercury. Just when the story involved her doing something, it was halted. The story saw Serena drink alcohol, which in the Straight Edge Society was forbidden, and this was to show dissension within the society as a storyline. Then a month later, she did it in real life, and instead of punishing her, they released her. What's notable about Serena's release is that this was one of the last times a talent was not punished for living their character outside. But even then, I think they would have found any way to release her because the Straight Society was basically done. Big Show beat them in a handicap match that same week, but even then, I think it's one of those that's unfair, you know, because she devoted her character to this thing, she devoted herself to the Straight Society, all this stuff, and it's like you just release them like this. Maybe there's more to the story. I mean, I kind of get it, but I don't think it's to the level of firing, especially because she's a notable part of the Straight Society.
Exactly. You could have at least suspended her. Firing her, that was kind of that's kind of overboard. Because she didn't live up. She disobeyed her character. What's the word I'm looking for? She didn't stay in character. Put it like that. She didn't stay in character. That's kind of OD.
Now, this one is one of the most stupid punishments I've ever seen. And this one is a matter of seeing things and understanding that the responsibility is not on these two. When The Rock returned in 2011, he needed to get into ring shape for his big clash at WrestleMania 28. The idea of a tag team match came up. The Rock and John Cena versus The Miz and R-Truth. It was never before, never again. WWE overhyped The Rock's return to the ring and were stunned that the numbers came in totally different to what they imagined. John Cena's return in 2008 drew more, and yes, this was during the internet live streaming era, so it was diminishing by the month, but Rock didn't help much for the show. He helped it, obviously, but it didn't help it as much as they imagined. They blamed The Miz and R-Truth for this. First of all, the Awesome Truth were false main eventers during that time. If you're like, what do you mean by false main eventers? They're fringe main eventers, they're not real main eventers. There was not much dangerous about them. It wasn't a real task for The Rock and John Cena. Plus, during the build of the match, Rock already beat their asses. So I'm gonna pay to see the same thing for $60 when I just saw it on Raw? Just with Rock wearing his trunks this time around? Survivor Series 2011 was a good show, but there's nothing distinctive about it if you look at the card. Half of these matches happened on TV, and why would The Rock team up with John Cena? So after Survivor Series, Miz and R-Truth looked like jokes. Truth was a face who had a mental issue, The Miz would get bitched and suffered a losing streak that is clearly sabotage, because while Miz wasn't a strong main eventer, he was in a much better position than he would be after WrestleMania 28. The punishment for R-Truth was because he violated the wellness policy, but for The Miz, it was nothing. It's just because the show didn't draw as well as they hoped. Miz didn't win a single match from December 5th, 2011 to WrestleMania 28. Doesn't that tell you something? It's a big thing whenever WWE promotes their video games because they bring in legends and notable talent to sell the game. WWE All-Stars was promoted with Randy Savage's first WWE video game appearance since WWF Raw in 1994. WWE 12 was promoted with Brock Lesnar as a secret character, and WWE 13 was all about Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Attitude Era. While promotion for WWE's new video game and the first 2K game being 2K14 was underway, the attention wasn't all over the game, which had yet another huge return. The Ultimate Warrior. But a weekend that brought SummerSlam, the roster reveal for WWE 2K14 was filled with drama outside the ring. This was a star-studded panel. JR was basically there to take charge of this, but he couldn't. Ric Flair was having too much fun now, realizing this was a 2K.
All them niggas was drunk as shit on that goddamn. Them niggas was drunk as hell. Every single one of them. Every single person you see on that stage, go back. Every single person you saw on that stage. Every single person you saw on this stage. Well, probably not Rey Mysterio and Daniel Bryan and them. But like the old heads, fucking Stone Cold, Paul, Mick Foley, JR, all them niggas was drunk as shit. They was on that stage shooting the shits.
Was filled with drama outside the ring. This was a star-studded panel. JR was basically there to take charge of this, but he couldn't. Ric Flair was having too much fun now, realizing this was a 2K event and that they were there to promote the game. He's telling stories drunk, and it was so far out that Paul Heyman ripped the script and let it be. JR was reprimanded badly for this, resulting in yet another firing. Very harsh, seeing as Flair was the one who was causing problems. And the problems for WWE were that it wasn't so PG for them to allow Flair to go up there and talk about alcohol and old stories. At phase U, you'd be like, this is all Ric Flair's fault. But if you actually watch the 2K14 event, JR himself is responsible for some moments. He claimed he wasn't drunk at one point and then contradicted himself in another interview saying he was. Now he says he wasn't that drunk. It's very conflicting from him, but in the day,
all y'all was fucked up. All y'all was fucked up. It's cool though. We appreciate it though. Y'all was old. Y'all was up there. Y'all was drunk. Y'all lit. Y'all was having a good time. Y'all was shooting the shits, talking about the good old days. Hey, it is what it is.
he does take the blame for his actions. It is what it is, but they would be served better if they had Michael Cole, who was so far up McMahon's ass during that time, to moderate this. He would correct him on his pronunciation of WWE. You know, he says WWE. Correct the hospital term and call it a local medical facility, and just satisfy every little issue that McMahon has with verbiage. Personally looking at this, yes, JR has to take some responsibility. Not entirely, of course, but he was tasked for a job and failed. When it comes to work, it doesn't matter how things are done as long as they're done. It might be unjust, it might be unfair, but that's how it is. You cause yourself a bigger problem by not fixing said issue. With a job, there's no real if, ands, or buts. That's why I said Michael Cole should have had this job. That guy probably eats from the WWE bowl and plays the WWE music on his speakers. He doesn't know anything else.
Nobody can follow that shit. You think Goldberg in it? I mean, give me a break. If you're thinking about getting married, throw it out. Hey, who can work with WCW and not drink? You give me a break. Lord.
Now, this is one I haven't thought about in so long, so my opinion on it has changed dramatically. But there was this one episode of Raw dedicated to Daniel Bryan's career. He was retiring and the show was all about him. But the fallout from that episode was not about Bryan as it rightfully should be, but about a pull from Titus O'Neil. Now, how does Titus talk? Oh, ladies first, or something. In McMahon, you could see him all angry drag his arm away. He suspends him for 3 months because of this. He misses WrestleMania, and if it wasn't for the fact that he was talked down, he was ready to fire him. But it was going to look very bad on the WWE to fire Titus O'Neil for this incident. Batista, a good friend of Titus, was very unhappy about this and suggested he quit, and Titus was fined around $5,000 and missed a big WrestleMania payday. And I remember thinking this was very unjust, but let me ask you something. Can you go to your boss and pull them like that, like they're one of the boys? No, you're getting punished. And Titus is a pretty...
I mean, to be fair, brother, you can't be putting your hands on people that you could have gave them a pound or something like that. Like, guilty. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's why you the boss. You could have did something like that, grabbing a nigga by his arm and yanking him, talking about, come here, boy, what's good with you? It's like, hell no. Nigga, if I'm Vince McMahon, I'm on your ass. I'm spinning your ass too.
Man, you know what? I'm tired of you. I'm tired of this shit!
Like, nigga, don't put your motherfucking hands on me. The fuck you think this is, bitch?
Man, you know what? I'm tired of you! I'm tired of this shit!
Strong guy. I'm sure his group would probably roughen you for that moment. Also, he had a history of being reprimanded for things such as this. I think his punishment was crazy, but the boss is the boss. I kind of feel bad for him, but, you know, he made a mistake here and he has to pay for it. Otherwise, everyone would be touching up on Vince. And obviously, he's not gonna like people touching on him, which is ironic, seeing it.
I mean, I wouldn't like people touching on me either. Fuck you mean? Put your hands on me. Like, they're looking at you. Like, come here, boy, what's happening with you?
Oh! Now you fucked up!
Alright, what you guys think of these wrestling punishments? Please comment down below, and that's for his video. Make sure you hit the Batista.
Alrighty, man, that's just gonna about do it for this one, man. For sure. Some of these punishments were bullshit, but some of these, I mean, let's be for real. Y'all, some of these were justified, okay? You can't just grab somebody and be like, yeah, boy, yeah. Hell no, don't put your fucking hands on me. Get your fucking hands off me, nigga. Got me fucked up out here. I wouldn't even have been mad at Vince if he said the N-word at that point. I wouldn't even have been mad, bro. Like, don't put your motherfucking hands on me like that, nigga. You don't know me like that.
Ass.
No, the wrong one. That's the wrong one.